You thought your focus or your obsession with this person would end once it became clear that things were not going to work out, but instead you're stuck still thinking about them constantly. You ruminate over what was, you fantasize about them potentially coming back, you play out scenarios where you somehow reconnect in the future, and instead of feeling relieved because it's over, you feel even worse now than you did when you were involved with them. You might be in the final stages of limerence, and here are 3 signs to help you tell. Hi, I'm Madalena, and this is You Reclaimed. Around here, we talk a lot about how we can take our lives back from the lasting effects of childhood trauma, of anxiety, and of general emotional dysregulation. And we do this because we want to finally live on our own terms. And today we're talking about the last phase of limerence, the dissolution phase, because it's this phase where the real work of healing can begin. Because as painful as this stage is, and it is quite painful, it's also the beginning of your way out. Let's get into it. Wait, did you subscribe yet? I have a lot more to share and I'd love to have you here for it. It really helps my channel grow and I appreciate it so much. Sign number 1, you're in this phase. You're still fantasizing about the reunion. You play out scenarios in your head where the person comes back. Perhaps they apologize, or they declare their love for you, or they express sentiments for you that they never expressed before. Or if distance was an issue, they move across the world so that you can finally be together. Or their wife magically disappears so that they can finally be with you. Maybe you imagine bumping into them, or you daydream about all kinds of scenarios of how you could rekindle this romance. And the truth is that you're using these fantasies to avoid facing the real grief. Because as long as you can keep imagining a reunion, you never have to face the ending. You can get stuck here never having to get past it. But this part is hard because when limerence is good, the parts that are good, that feel like the height of it, it's really good. There are very few things in life that feel as euphoric and powerful and all-consuming as that short-lived high of limerent obsession. And when you get to the part where you have to let it go, a lot of the time you just don't want to. Because what if nothing ever feels that good again? That's the part people don't usually talk about. And that's how they get stuck in this phase for months or years or, well, decades sometimes. And because there is already so much shame and embarrassment and bad feelings that tag along with this kind of intense romantic obsession, the last thing we want to talk about is how you don't want to let it go. But it's real, so let's do it. Sign number 2 is you feel addicted to the sadness. You know that it's over, but you don't really want to move on because even though you're in pain, the pain somehow still connects you to the person and it keeps the attachment alive. And it keeps you from having to close the door completely, right? Because the idea of letting it go feels unbearable, like you'd be erasing something really special, something that feels almost sacred because of its intensity. And if you allow yourself to stop hurting, then maybe it means that none of it meant anything. So you hold on to that ache for as long as you can. And you replay the best parts of it in your own head and you reopen the wound just a little bit to feel something again. This is where limerence can become its own kind of addiction in this way. Because once you come to this stage, you're not really chasing the person anymore. Now you're just chasing emotional residue. The intensity of bad feelings and grief and emptiness. And here the sadness can start to feel familiar and safe and even necessary because it's the only thing you have left of this thing, right? Because without sadness, what's left? Silence, emptiness, the reckoning that you actually finally have to come to, right? Sign number 3 is it changes you. Eventually, the obsession starts to wear itself out. And once that intensity quiets down just enough, something starts to shift. Because now you don't have a choice. You have to ask yourself deeper questions. I mean, you do have a choice, but you have to resist asking yourself these questions really hard. Like, why this person? Why this particular connection? What did I think that this person could fix in me? What exactly was it about this person that hooked me to them in the first place? And what was I hoping to feel through them? And these answers are often more revealing than you'd expect, but they reveal things about yourself, not about the other person. In limerence, the other person is not that relevant. If you don't ask yourself these questions, then you can end up repeating this loop of limerence with other people. You can keep doing this forever if you don't ask yourself what purpose this served in your life or how you got there in the first place. Because limerence is not just about desire, it's about emotional longing. And what you're longing for is meeting unmet needs that you had long before you met this person, needs that came from your childhood that were never met when they should have been met. This is about patterns that were set in place long before we ever had a chance to form romantic attachments as adults. And we fall into limerent obsession because the people we connect with, they fit into unconscious archetypes that belong to us, that are already in our own subconscious mind. And we try to resolve issues with these archetypes through people we hook up with in the present. And that realization, if you do come to this realization, if you don't just keep repeating these patterns, right, it cracks something open in you. It has to. That's when the real self-work can begin. Because limerence shows something about you. It shows that you're capable of intense feelings of love, that your emotional range is heightened for some reason, that you're capable, right? Some people don't live like that. You know very well that some people seem to have very calm and very stable love lives. They fall in love and they love deeply and have meaningful romantic attachments, but those extreme highs and lows of limerence, they never make an appearance in their lives. So this is when you really have to look at yourself, at your own childhood, at traumatic events that have formed your ideas of love, that have affected how you attach to people. Because your own ability to go to the highs and lows of limerence means that there's a real possibility this is not your only experience of this kind of intensity. And you can definitely repeat it if you don't become conscious of how you're participating in attracting and attaching to either unrequited romances or to people who are just not emotionally capable of giving you a real emotional connection. If you're here, if you've gotten to this phase, it means that your body is still holding on to something that your mind is probably actively trying to release, right? It means your nervous system at some point, it got wired into a pattern, not because there's something wrong with you or with the way you love, but because that pattern is very familiar and is so deeply ingrained in you at the physical level. And there's hope and the potential for healing attached to it in your subconscious. But this stage, this is the turning point. Because the moment you can see the cycle clearly for what it is the moment that you can stop being ruled by it. And that's definitely a good thing. And we'll talk more about that, about how to get out of limerence and about how to change these self-defeating patterns in ourselves. Because you deserve whole and reciprocal love, not just love fumes from people who can't be with you or people who can't love you or people you can't have relationships with for some reason. Consider subscribing if you like this type of content, and I'll see you in the next one.